Hi there, my name is Jasmin Junger, also known as Kuschelimel all over the internet. My hobbies are photomanipulation and photography, for which I love to share my tips and tricks and techniques. Today I will show you how I blend and light a magic vial, add some hair, change colors in a manip to set the mood without using the camera raw filter as explained in my last tutorial, and put the finishing touches on my image Poison. For this I have recorded my screen and am replaying it at twice and 4 times the original speed, since the original footage was almost 2 hours long and I don't want you to fall asleep watching it in real time. Aside from YouTube, you can find me and my manips stock and tutorials also on Instagram, DeviantArt, and my own website artofkuschelimel.de. I link all of these in the description below. Now let's get started. First I want to show you how I put the vial into her hand. This is just to show you some techniques or some tricks that I use super frequently. For example, just now you saw me using the width at the top of the options bar and just dragging on the W to the left and to the right, so you can scale it from there, as well as holding down the handlebars on the side. Now I'm using a layer mask and painting on it with black to remove all the parts that should not be shown, so that are behind the fingers in this case. For this I usually put the layer that I'm trying to incorporate to 50% opacity or thereabouts, so that I can better see where the exact line is that I need to use basically. So now you can see me going in more closely and painting back some of the parts that I removed with white. This is one of the things that I really like about layer masks, that you can go in and change things. Now I'm using the blur tool to blur the layer mask's lines. So basically what you can do is you can use any kind of tool or any kind of filter on your mask. So this is, for me, this is something that is really super useful in making the transitions correctly. I'm now using a hue saturation adjustment layer set to multiply to get the tones right. It is used to darken everything a bit, and if you go to colorize, you can actually give it a tint of one color, and then you can play with the opacity or the lightness to remove some of the effect. And I really like the way it makes everything darker without really taking everything just a few stops down, and it's a bit more selective than that, I feel. So especially for this, I think it works just nicely. Now, what I don't quite like at the moment, and this is what I'm starting to work at in a minute, is that now when you zoom out, you basically don't see the vial anymore, which might also be due to the fact that I forgot to put it back to 100%. But I'm using now a hard light layer, basically a radial gradient, and I'm changing the hue saturation of the gradient after the fact so that I can see what fits best. So you can change the hue and the saturation and the lightness and get the right tone that you want without having to match it from the start. Now I'm using some curves to get some more contrast in, and I'm also trying out the other channels, the blue, the green and the red channel, to see if I want to change the hues in some specific way there as well. So here you can basically pump up the greens in the light spaces or in the dark spaces, or take them down. So I think this is also a very versatile way to change colors. Next I'm going to try and get another one of the hard light layers. So basically I'm just duplicating the one that I already have, and now I'm playing with the blend modes. And in the newer versions of Photoshop, it gives you actually a preview when you hover over them. And now I'm just transforming it to reach more of the area beyond the actual vial, because I want to make it glow in a pinkish kind of way. And now I'm already going in with a color dodge layer and a light rose color, but it's not at the very top of the range of lightness, because the color dodge, it is very, very powerful. That's also why I only have the brush on 21% opacity, because I feel like going multiple times over the same things gives me a better and a more even look than trying to get one stroke and everything is right. I'm using a Gaussian blur to soften the effect, because my strokes were kind of visible and I did not really like that. But that's really something that is really up to you, how much of this effect you want, how many layers of this effect you want, if you want it on color dodge, or if you would rather have a lighter color on hard light or on screen and reduce the opacity after. It's a very stylistic thing. It's not something that is right or wrong. It's basically what you want to do or how you prefer doing things. So now you can see that I'm also lightening up some of the immediate area, the areas that are protruding and that would catch the light from the vial, and in addition some other things that I just thought would benefit from having a bit more lightness on them. This is also, by the way, something I get asked a lot, how I get this painted look in the end. And it's often because I do a lot of those paint layers. And if you, basically, even if you don't really see the strokes anymore, it gives this painted look. You don't really need to be able to paint anything in that sense. You just need to go out and see and then maybe do something. I mean, you can see me here painting in with soft light and a dark color, some shadows. You can in between see me erasing things again, or using the eye tool on the side of the layers to check how the effect of the layer is and if I want it to be more pronounced or not. If I maybe don't like it at all, then I will really delete it again. So this is really something that you have to get a feeling for yourself. You cannot just go, okay, each time I do this, I will follow, for example, my glow tutorial that I have on DeviantArt. It will explain a lot on how I do those layers and in which sequence I usually do them if I want this glow effect. But you can see here that it doesn't have to always be the same sequence, the same layers. You can improvise as much as you like, as long as what you get in the end is what you want. So what I discovered now is when you zoom out, you still cannot really see that there's a vial in her hand, which was really upsetting me. So I'm putting in some outlines more or less in a light color to see if it works. And yes, it did work, but I did not like my sloppy outlines, so I deleted them again, and I'm now starting over again with a screen blend mode and a very light pink. So I'm going around the vial once and then trying to put in some highlights and some, well, those highlights are not really, that's probably also something that contributes to the look, to this painted look. It's not always exactly what would happen in reality. It's sometimes more of a style choice. For example, getting all the lines around this vial. And now I'm duplicating it and blurring it a bit so that I get a different look. So basically it's not, it doesn't have to be super realistic, but it really depends on the style you want or what you want to do with it. And well, I find that for me this works really well. And as I said, you can take a look at my glow tutorial. It's a written tutorial on DeviantArt where I really go through each of these steps. You can also watch my tutorial about the deviation silver that I did. It's almost 2 hours of me talking in real time. So not like this where I have sped up the video and I'm just telling you some stuff on the side. I'm actually showing you the steps of lighting something. So, but in the end it's always the same. Now I'm going in with a soft brush, a low opacity, in screen mode, and I'm just trying to get some more of the highlights to come out and to make this, give this glow effect that I like, or that I wanted to have for this vial. So again, I'm always checking, do I like the effect, do I not like the effect, do I want to duplicate something, change maybe the blend mode. The more you do this, the more it will fit from the start, but on the other hand, for me this is also the part that I really like to play with, so that usually takes quite some time. Even though I kind of know where I want to go and how I'm getting there, I still really, as you can see, I'm now playing again with the colors. I really love doing this. It just, I think it's deeply relaxing. And now in the next part, I'm showing you part at least of how I colorize my images. And I really like to use big gradients, so radial gradients or normal linear gradients, from transparent to any color. Don't use black or white because it will not give you any real great effect. Use something at least a little tinted, and then I put it on a blend mode, or in this case I even didn't put it on a blend mode, I guess. And I'm playing with the saturation and the lightness until I find something that I like, that will give me the atmosphere that I feel fits. So in this case I wanted to go a bit darker around her. It's also why I started the radial gradient on the vial with the transparent part and then went to the darker side. So you can see this is a normal layer set to 70%, which will also serve to get rid of all the big contrasty things and make the middle where she's holding the vial with the bigger contrasts really pop. So now I'm going in with a soft light layer and I'm trying to get some more color on her so that the color is basically coming from the vial. And also there, I mean, if you go through all of the hues that are available and change the lightness, the brightness, the saturation, you can get a lot of different effects. Go through all of these blend modes as well. Play with the opacities. Some of the blend modes have a different, go look if you use opacity versus the fill. So it's always worth checking this out. So now back to normal, back to screen, opacity down, opacity up. That's really, yeah, I can do this for hours, which to look at might be a bit on the boring side. That's why I sped it up by 200%. But here you can see, you can get, if you use one of the blend modes that is not so common, like difference or exclusion, you can get some really cool effects. You could also use, for example, at the bottom there's the adjustment layers. Use an adjustment layer with a gradient on it that has not just from transparent to a color, but between two colors that you can change. And then put it on a blend mode that is a bit funky. See what you can get. Now I'm using the color balance, which is and has always been one of my favorites to change hue, mood, saturation, whatever, because you have the highlights, the midtones and the shadows in different parts, and it will then affect the highlights and the midtones and the shadows separately. So to get something super harmonious, you can go into one direction with all of them, But what really works super well is to go with something cold for the highlights and warm for the shadows, or the other way around. So yeah, basically all I can tell you is play with these things and see what you would like to do. So here I'm just testing if I want the gradient to be somewhere else. So what I did was to load the selection by control clicking on the layer itself and putting it on a mask with a solid fill layer instead. So now I can change the mask if I want to. For example, with the levels, make it bigger and smaller. I could also just use the transform like I was trying to do now, I guess. Yeah, here you can see what the layers will do. So basically everything that is black will vanish. So this is something that you can do. Here you can see the effect actually, and it doesn't really look like much. So I think in the end I didn't do a lot with that. But yeah, it can make quite a lot of difference, and I think it's really worth it having a lot of these tips and tricks up your sleeve to be able to test if that is the way how you can get to wherever you want to go. Now I'm back to doing some retouching basically on her face and lighting on her face. So now I'm going in with a light bluish color to lighten up some of her chin and her cheeks, also some of the flowers. And also with that I always check if I really like the effect or if it's too much. And now I'm in with the eraser and trying to get rid of some of the things that I had overdone, in my opinion. So in my art I always do a lot of layers, and I don't think that having a lot of layers is a sign of quality or not. It's just a sign that I'm not so sure what exactly I want to keep and what not, so I have a lot of layers, let's put it that way. Here I'm in my frequency separation layers. I will make a separate video about how to get rid of blemishes and how to use the frequency separation. Here I'm doing a more traditional approach, getting rid of the hair clip in her hair, and I also want to get rid of, you can see on her forehead, there's a bit left of the something to do probably with the wig she's wearing, so you can see some sort of net there, so I want to get rid of it. So what I'm doing is I'm using the patch tool, and what you basically do is you choose a part and then you drag it to where you want to clone from, more or less, and it will fill it up. And the important thing is to have it on source and then just to drag it to where you want it to be. So this you can basically also do for the blemishes, but I really like to do it with the frequency separation. Basically you still do it like this, but yeah, as I said, I will do a separate video on that because it's a super powerful tool, and it would kind of be a bit too much for this video. So here I'm just doing the last bits of the retouching. Now I want to get rid of this harsh part on her lips, so I'm trying if just painting over with the color will do something. Now I'm going in between my frequency separation layers and realizing that it really doesn't do much. So I stay above, tried it on color first, didn't really fit. Now I'm going in with hard light and this dark red color, and it seems to be getting better. So for now I'm just trying to get rid of the really light parts here. Sometimes it's a bit of a hit and miss. I mean, that's why I also previously said you need a lot of tools and techniques in your portfolio to be able to deal with things like this. What may work on one image does not work on the other. Here I have a very annoying kind of one line that is super light, so I put my layer on darker color, so it will only show the pixels that are actually darker than the pixels below, and in this case this really works well. But it still, to me, it still had some issues, mainly that there was no texture on those parts and that it still had this kind of harsh line because of it. So I'm also going in with the patch tool again, and there I'm just trying to get the right pieces to patch from so that it doesn't look like I'm cloning stuff. It's just a bit of a hit and miss in this case, I have to admit. It's not super planned. But also, yeah, maybe this seeing this also helps you, because there you can see that not everything is always super planned, and if you just know how to do it, you will get super fast, blah blah blah. So yeah. But what I have done on the layer is to stamp everything below. That's a really long shortcut. It's Control Alt Shift and E, and that will stamp everything visible down onto a new layer. And this is, I think this is basically what I did here. And so I'm working on that layer destructively, might I add, which is usually really not my thing. if you've seen any more videos from me. So now again with the hard light and getting rid of some, because I wanted this to be darker in the bottom. So maybe in the end, if you zoom out and you don't really see it, but yeah, to me, I think these kinds of details make or break an image. If you put in all this time and effort to choose the right colors and to do the right things that you think are right anyway, then not going this extra step feels off to me. That's basically it. So now I'm back on top of everything and trying to figure out if I want this on screen or color dodge or what, and trying to get some more specific highlights in with a small brush and low opacity and just painting a lot of times. So basically this is what you will see me do more or less for the rest of this tutorial, I guess. And zoom out and check if it's still right. This is also why I like to have the navigator on the right, because there you can always see kind of a thumbnail. And here I had it on sample all layers, and that did not really work. So I unchecked that, and now I can blur what I wanted to blur without blurring the rest and making a mess of things. But yeah, this is also, I mean, you can do this for a lot of time, and you can do this for years and years, and you will still sometimes find something where you think, what the hell did I just do? And sometimes I think it's actually worth making a mistake, because that mistake might actually look cool, and it might actually give you an idea of how you can do something else. And this is also something, I think, if you just stick to tutorials and if you just try to match what others do, it will be hard to get your own style. By experimenting, you will probably get it much easier. And I think if you experiment a lot and let yourself not make the greatest images and let yourself not be super perfect all the time, I think it will be more satisfying for you in the end. I'm going in to the eyes, which is one of my favorite things to do actually. So I'm checking the different blend modes and seeing. I want them a bit lighter, I want them a bit more shiny, but I don't want them artificial super crass shiny. At least at this point I don't. So now I'm just going in with a soft brush and painting over the colored part of the iris. And if you now zoom out, you can see that she looks like a vampire or something. So this is, if you go to color dodge, it's a bit better. It will just lighten everything inside and give her a strange blue color. So now I'm trying to change the color and see where it gets me. Of course, you can do something super saturated and bright and crazy, and maybe it fits to your image. I was thinking for a moment to put her eyes in pink, just because it fit with the flowers, but then I thought it might be a bit too much. So I'm back to color dodge with a bluish color and trying to get her eyes to shine like pop blue. But still, that was a bit too much. I think if you look in the small part of the navigator, you can see that if you zoom out, sometimes it just looks off. So now I'm on a soft light layer with something really dark. I never use pure black or white, as I said before, because the effect is usually, I think it feels washed out, and it's not so, it doesn't add anything besides actual darkness or lightness, and I like to add some more colors. It makes images much more vibrant. Even if you have a very reduced overall color scheme, I think it's worth experimenting with as well. So now I'm also adding on overlay some bluish tones, bluish highlights, color picking from the iris, going over the iris, getting it a bit more blue, not being, then again changing the color because it wasn't really how I thought it should look. And now I'm back to this emerald blue color that I really, that really resonated with me, I guess. And once more, I'm putting everything in a group and turning off the group to see if I really like the effect. And in this case, I guess I did. So next group and next mission. Basically, what I really didn't like at the moment is the hair. I know it's wet and blah blah blah, but I wanted a few more strands. So I started painting some in. For this, I'm using a soft brush that tapers off at the ends. It's one of my Photomanipulation brushes, so it's the first one, the 8 pixel one that I'm using here, on a very high opacity, and then just going in and painting and painting and painting some more strands here, some more strands there. And I'm really not the greatest at that. And now I'm using the hard round brush, a bit bigger, that is just set to opacity, to change opacity with my pen pressure, and the other one was also set to taper out. And yeah, here I'm basically color picking from the image and then painting in more strands to fill up her hair. And since I'm really not the best at this, I never have been, and probably I never will be, but I have to admit it has been much better. I have become much better at this than before. I used to be super bad at it. So yes, there is something to say about practice makes perfect. Though I don't think you need to be perfect all the time. It really helps here also. I mean, you can see I don't like it, I kill it again, and I start over, and I zoom in, and I'm trying to figure out, what is that anyway? Is that one strand of hair that's just strangely there, or what is it? Do I want to emphasize it? Do I want to get rid of it? So yeah. And what I have found works mostly is to start with the dark colors and to put in the dark strands first, because they will be the ones that are below. So also with the bigger brush and the bigger strands, so that it basically fills up whatever you want to paint, and then going in with a small brush and painting the the individual strands with lighter colors and lighter colors. It's a lot of work, but it's, at least for me, it's the only thing that really works and it doesn't look super, super awkward. I've tried using hair strand brushes and whatnot, but yeah, for some reason I really I really suck at this. So I stick with painting all of the strands and watching YouTube videos on the side. Basically, that's also, if you don't think you have to be ready in 5 minutes, for me it's kind of relaxing to do this. And on that note, if this is your hobby and you're not doing this for a client and you're not doing this, you don't have to have the pressure behind you that you need to be done in a certain amount of time, then just play with it and don't put yourself under too much pressure. I know it's super easy if you see the things on DeviantArt or Instagram and, oh, that's a great idea and this is a super great idea and Maya is not so great. And why does this not work and why does this look strange and why do I want to kick something to the curb again? But yeah, I think if you manage to get rid of at least some of the pressure that you put on yourself, basically, because it's rarely your followers or someone who is shouting, we want a new image every week, at least, unless you do it for a living, then it's quite different, of course. But if you just do it for yourself, then you can take the liberty of not uploading something if you are not satisfied, or you can take the liberty of uploading something and saying, hey folks, I'm not really satisfied with this. What is wrong? What could I do better? Does somebody have a tip? Or maybe go into a forum and see if there's some like-minded people that you actually like. Because what I have also found out over the past 15 years on the internet is that the wider the audience, the less it feels like you can actually ask them something, if that makes sense. It's mostly, maybe it's due to me not caring so much anymore, I don't know. But yeah, basically, I think if you find a handful of people that you really like and that you want their input on, that you know that they are good at this, that they are not your sister, your brother, your mom, who will either always tell you that you're great or always tell you that you should not bother. Then maybe get some of these, maybe on DA as well. There's a lot of forums, a lot of chats where you can go and where you can find like-minded people. You don't have to put it in your, say, official gallery or in your Instagram feed if you don't like. But you could, for example, put it in your story. And if there's somebody who is willing to help, then it would probably be great, huh? On a side note, if you want me to take a look at your work, you can always ask me. Just be aware that during the week I'm usually not online much and it might take a while for me to respond, but I really try to respond to everyone. So here you can see how long it takes me, and this is already twice the speed. Again, always going in the small brush, the big brush, checking, do I like this? How does it look? Do I need more strands? Does it look too messy? Do I maybe want to go in not with a normal layer, but do I want to go in with a soft light layer to do some shadows on what I already have, or some highlights on what I already have? So basically, I'm doing this over and over and over and building up the individual strands of hair. And maybe there's a better way to do this, but yeah, as I said, for me this works and it looks fine for me, so I do this. So now I'm back to overall color corrections, leaving the hair for now. This is also, I mean, I do jump a lot. I go from, okay, let's fix the hair, then maybe I can do something else on the colors, to well, I think the lighting is a bit off, I need some more shadows here and some more highlights there. Sometimes I jump a lot, sometimes it's once through. It really depends. So here you can see that I'm checking the green channel and lifting up the darks and going down with the highlights of the greens, and trying out what happens if I do it with the reds. So I kind of like this, but I think I wasn't quite sure where I wanted to go with it. But this washed out look, this is what you get when you just lift the leftmost point up. If you do it on the RGB channel, then it's just a bit washed out. If you do it on red, blue, green channels, then you will increase red, blue or green in this washed out section, basically. So you can get any effect that you like by changing this. Now I'm back to, and going back in, seeing this. If you do an S curve on the RGB, it's going to give you a lot more contrast. So now I'm basically combining it, more contrast with that washed out feeling, which might be a bit of might be a bit strange. So I'm jumping back and forth at the moment, trying to figure out which look I really want. What you could also see in the histogram just before, when it showed there, that there were a lot of dark tones and not so many light tones. Now, I like it when I have an image that is supposed to be kind of a night image, that I have one really strong light source, in this case the vial, and then I will everything else will be rather dark. For me, I think it gives a lot of contrast, but I always need to be very careful that not everything overall is much too dark. So that is something that I always need to do in the end, and sometimes I'm a bit more successful than other times. What I'm doing now is to paint some more lighter strands of hair in and do some overall color corrections, so lightness and darkness corrections. So this is a soft light layer, and I'm basically now using a color picked from the darks in her hair to put in some shadows. So basically here on the fish, where the hand is blocking the light, you need to, as I explained in one of my other videos, to be a bit aware of where you have something protruding that is blocking the light, that is catching the light on one side probably, and then blocking the light off on the other side. So anything where her hair and her head is in between, so that the whole left side needs to be a bit darker, because otherwise she will look super flat. And this is what you can do with lighting, basically. You can give this a 3D feel without really doing a lot of painting or so. I'm just painting in with a very big brush some of the shadows, and also there you can see me layering it. So putting one layer of shadows on, so that only in the middle of her arm is the highlight, so that it actually looks round, that it stops looking so flat. I'm going through all of the parts of the image and trying to figure out, okay, here the light catches on the water is super shiny, that's fine, but it should not be all that shiny because she's in between. Yes, there is probably some ambient light coming from somewhere, otherwise it would need to be super dark, which for the composition I would not like. But yeah, basically this is now in this zoomed out mode. What I'm trying to do is to get a feeling for where the highlights and the shadows overall need to be. And of course you can do this before you colorize, you can do this after you colorize. It really depends on your personal preference, or maybe even on your daily form or whatever. So I don't do it in the same sequence either. And then you can always check, do I want the curves or level adjustments or whatever? Do I want this above everything or below everything? Then you can go in with the soft light highlight layer as I'm doing here. And you will see that each of the layers will build up to your final image. And yes, it's sometimes a bit hard to see the end or to see where you want to go, especially if, I think for me it's often also I don't really know where I want to go. That's why I'm testing so many things. And here with the topmost group, the adjustments, I'm really happy because I like this washed out, less contrasty look on the left and bottom, and the contrast on the vial. And I think now when you look at the navigator on the right, you can see it starts to really pop. So now I'm going in and putting in some more highlights, some more hair strands that will catch the light, and trying to not overdo it, I guess. But that's for me, that's always a bit hard. Knowing where to stop is really, really hard. And I'm super sure that if I were to do the same thing next year or last year, it would look completely different. Also the style, I mean, yes, I think you can see that it's one of my images for some strange reason, which I have never really gotten why that really is, because I used to be super angry that when I was trying to emulate the style of someone else, that in the end you could always see it was my image. And so then somebody said, well, but that's your style, and it's good that you can see that. But I was always so frustrated that it didn't come out the way I had envisioned it. But maybe that's part of the process, to sometimes not be able to do some things because they're just not what you do, or however you want to say that. Point is, again, if you put yourself under the pressure that you want to do something very specific, then you need to be prepared that it will not work. No matter how many techniques and whatnot you know, maybe it's just a difference in style. Yeah, and another screen layer with some smaller strands, and this, well, I can do this until somebody shouts we should go to bed. I don't know. And then I see that I don't like it, and then I start over. It's always the same. And then I'm going in with the selective color and trying to figure out if I want something else, but no matter what I do in this case, I don't get something that I like more than what I already have. The selective color can be super helpful, by the way, because you can choose your color, including white and neutral and black, and then you can change all of these. So it's basically more than it's a bit similar to the color balance, but it chooses one specific color to do this on. You really need to experiment with it to see what you can do, but I think it's super cool sometimes. And sometimes I open it and then I find, okay, it looks really shitty, so let's use something else. I'm trying out if I want to have some glitter and glow on some parts, usually using my star brushes for this with a very light color that I pick from the highlights of the image. Then I put it as a smart object, use sharpen and the unsharp mask tool, and I put it on 300, 3 and 1. So the threshold is 1, the amount is 300, and the other thing is 3, and that gives you really sharp glowy points, and I think that looks kind of nice for glitter, or for this glitter effect, also for stars themselves, I think. And now I'm transforming them and getting them where I want them to be, or where I think I want them to be, and then painting away what I don't like with a layer mask and the brush set to black, because I don't think that if she gets a weird glowy dot on her nose that it makes her look so great. So, and I'm back to color gradients and trying out if I want something. This one is on multiply, and I'm just checking how I want this to look, or if I want it to be there at all. And putting also another layer mask on it to get rid of the darkness on her face. I hope this tutorial was helpful for you. If you have any more questions or any suggestions, comments, anything you like to ask or just shout out, please leave these in the comments below, and I will do my best to answer them as quickly as I can. Thank you a lot for watching. Bye.